testing, audio, blah, 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 blah. I'm from Portland, Oregon. Yep, exactly. My programming hero. That is a good question. My programming hero is Terrence Lee, not because he is well known for programming, but because he is an ambassador for community building and interaction and making sure that people feel inclusive and loved in the community, and has worked tirelessly to bring people into Ruby and to make this a more welcoming place. The advice that I would give myself before I learned how to program is to not be afraid to break things, and in fact, that breaking things is the important part of the learning process. That a lot of people feel that computers are something that are fragile, or you need to do something perfectly in order to make it work, but breaking them is where you find their limits, and breaking things is how you learn how to make code better. There are a few open source projects that have really made an impact on my life. The cop-out answer is Rails, and then it brought me into Ruby and it brought me into web development itself. There's a couple other languages and frameworks that I think are more relevant to today's interests. I think that a lot of things that Sinatra's been doing has been interesting, but then not only that, but there's people who make tiny little gems that help people out with the small little things, the interesting things that are probably more approachable. I think that thinking of open source as something that's very a gigantic undertaking, and that there are these gigantic projects makes people feel like they can't contribute back to them. And when people see tiny little libraries that are adding just tiny bits of functionality to code bases that they're working with and they know, that feels a lot more like something that a regular person can contribute to. And that's where the new ideas are coming from, and that's where people can be creative. So there's I think, there's not any one specific tiny gem that does that, but that people should be looking for and celebrating the tiny projects that are the glue that keeps everything together. The exciting thing in software, I think, is twofold. One, that electronics are becoming cheaper and ubiquitous, which means that there's more interesting electronics work to be done in areas that are outside computing and even outside mobile development. You're getting a lot more, the whole Internet of Things is becoming a reality, but at the same time, computing is becoming something that's really approachable to a lot more people, so it's not something that's super scary, and it's not something that someone necessarily needs to spend an entire year of their life reading about the arcane details of a programming language to get involved in, which means that at the time when there's a plethora of things to be playing around with in the technological space, there is a wider audience of people bringing them into the tech space and making it so that programming is not just something that the select few do, but it's something that everyone should do. And so I think the most interesting thing now is to really make it a reality to be a technologically aware culture, and that something about tech and programming is accessible to everyone, and that's just like a normal part of growing up as a child and a normal part of living as an adult. Well, so the interesting and fun thing about software development, and this is what I tell a lot of people that are interested in programming, but they like to claim that they could never become a programmer, is that software intersects every other possible industry that you might think of. And so the interesting thing about learning software, learning computing, and learning how to deal with programming languages is that can add to and augment any other industry or hobby or interest you might possibly have. And so I think that no matter whether I'm going to be doing something that's fully programming in the future, or whether I want to move off in another direction. I can always have tech and programming as part of that, and I don't think at this point I could completely give it up.
Great.
Thanks.
Very good.